Now, this is where Peter comes back for some more thoughts on Auckland. Over to you, Peter. Thanks.
Those of you who were at the talk I gave at the meeting that Auckland Unlimited ran last Friday can shut their ears now, go to sleep, because you've heard all of this, and I'm going to do it very rapidly because of time. But we have Auckland Unlimited ask us to prepare and use our thinking, and we've had discussions also with the other agencies and with APO and with Treasury and MB, to think through where Auckland might go and could go 20 to 30 years from here. So looking beyond the transactional issues which must dominate most councils and most governments, to try and look further out. And the way we've chosen to do that is to, first of all, just be honest about the challenges. The first challenge is the perception of Auckland outside Auckland. The issue is most New Zealanders don't realise that Auckland is its biggest asset. Most New Zealanders don't recognise that it is, in fact, nearly 40% of the population. It is a fundamental asset that the economy of Auckland drives the rest of New Zealand in many ways. And that's not been sold to the rest of New Zealand. It's also not been sold to the rest of New Zealand that Auckland's very different in many ways, not as just because it's a pile of orange cones and transport issues and complaints, which is what much of New Zealand sees Auckland as. Jaffas, God knows what, we could go there. But officials in Wellington will readily admit to me they do not understand Auckland. Their concept of Auckland, the diversity of our peoples, the way we have our history as a mercantile city rather than as a Wakefield settlement, the issues of different relationships, much more, in many ways, and I don't want to diminish what's gone on, but there's been a lot of interaction with the iwi and hapu of Auckland in different ways to elsewhere in the country. There is a lot going on here that's very different. But the demography of Auckland, the business model, the culture of Auckland is sufficiently different. We have not sold that that is an asset to the rest of New Zealand. We've not done that systematically or well, and I'll come back to that momentarily. The second issue is, 10 years into the super city, what's common between Dairy Flat and Flatbush? We don't actually sync yet as a city. Some people do. If the Blues won every time, maybe we would think of it differently. And I'm not, but you know, what does give us civic pride? What does give us a sense that the city belongs to the nearly 2 million people that live in Auckland? There's issues here that we need to think through, and we can build on that. The third issue that is really important, and Dornell is going to talk about it, so I'm not going to steal her thunder, is cities exist because they're advantageous for people to live in cities. And whatever anybody else thinks, people are going to continue to migrate to Auckland, both internally and externally, and any estimate of Auckland's growth is probably going to be on the underside, not on the overside. We'll be 2 million people soon and go beyond that. Irrespective of government policy, cities exist because there are psychic, economic and other reasons why people want to agglomerate. But one of the reasons most important is agglomeration should bring economic growth. And unfortunately, Auckland does not demonstrate the agglomeration effect of economic growth appropriate for the size of a city in a country of this size. Now, there are reasons for it which need to be explored and addressed, but equally, because we have not shown the agglomeration effect to the extent we should have, Wellington looked at Auckland just as a large number of people living in one place and they don't know how to play rugby, rather than recognising this to be the economic engine. So this issue of the failure of the agglomeration effect in Auckland is a critical issue that we in Auckland need to own, not just leave it to Treasury to own, and we need to address it as a whole. If Auckland is to achieve its dream, which I think everybody will have, they can at the highest level say we want to be a globally relevant city, we want to be an important city, we want to be economically well, we want to be environmentally sensitive, etc., etc. We can all say those high-level things, greater equity, deal with issues. We can all say that, but without actually addressing this agglomeration deficit, it's going to mean nothing. And so that's a critical issue that we're focused on, and Dornell will talk about a bit more. And related to all of this is our citizens are not well engaged. Oh, they'll scream up and down about orange cones and Quay Street or whatever, but local body elections are not engaging. Local body elections have a low turnout. It links to this issue of civic pride. It actually has a lot of issues, and if we want a city that is cohesive and an engine which is working economically, also has to work socially. And therefore we need to think seriously about the opportunities of how do we use the advantages of new developments and participatory and deliberative democracy, and Koitu is heavily involved in some of those, to actually engage our citizens more than, and I don't mean this rudely, but what are relatively tokenistic consultations that go on about the issues of Auckland into the future. And that leads on to the big question, and I could go on at length. I mean, one of the issues that I think about is what is the role, is local body democracy, and I'll come back to that in a moment. But the issue, let's stop moaning, let's think positively. We have assets that are not exploited. I'm not allowed to use the word exploited, have not been, which could be used much better to more advantage for New Zealand. I have word police in my department, at my units. And I'm just going to mention 3 of them. It's universities, not just Auckland, but AUT, Massey as well. I know of no city of this size in the world which has its university sector so disconnected from the business sector, so disconnected from the social sector as these 3 universities are. Now, that doesn't mean there aren't individual academics who walk the talk, but structurally we don't have it. Waterloo, Canada, Tel Aviv, Geneva, I could go on, Copenhagen, Helsinki, the structural relationships and the behavioural and cultural relationships between the universities, with 7,000 academics probably across the 3 of them, maybe more, 70,000 students, of which a growing number are graduate students. There's a resource here which we need to think differently about. It's diversity. More than 30% Asian, close to 40% soon. Maori, Pacifica. These are not to be seen as problems, these are assets. Diversity of view is something that we've learnt over the years is a real intellectual strength. What we need to do is build on that. Our Asian population, the world is turning to Asia. We have more depth here in a positive sense around Asians than many other countries. How do we use that? New Zealand is going to face, has to face and confront constitutional change before 2040. As the largest population of Maori in the country, how do we engage in that and actually show a way to be constructive? There are opportunities galore in this if you think it through and think of it from the positive lens rather than from the downside lens. And then Auckland is made up of the amalgamation of villages and towns that have gradually amalgamated over 180 years into this big agglomeration. Many of those had actually distinct characteristics. They do have distinct characteristics. Many of them, even from the merger from the super city only 10 years ago, had some distinct characteristics. Our problem in Auckland is we have not thought that those distinct characteristics become a real asset. And we need to actively, proactively, how do you build a precinct? You build something that that people want to live around and work around. We have a precinct in Auckland, but it's not the precinct we want. It's called the Auckland Grammar Zone. People have moved to be around that because people want their kids to go to a great school. Why don't we have great schools in West Auckland, South Auckland, in North Auckland? We probably do, but why are we not promoting it and making them more accessible? Are health services equally distributed? No. I'll come back to that. But most importantly of all, how do we create work opportunities that are meaningful and in those in South Auckland, West Auckland, North Auckland, to reduce the amount of internal travel in Auckland? If people could work closer to home, and we had more of a hub and spoke model, a model which moved people around the outsides, we would change a lot of issues in Auckland. Why is Auckland not the Hollywood of Auckland? West Auckland, the Hollywood of Auckland. Why do we have the dance school and the drama school and all of that in the centre of the town rather than out in West Auckland? Or something like out there. Am I stealing your thunder? I'm sorry. I'll shut up there. Okay. I'll stop. I'm getting into a rave. But the point I'm making is there are assets in Auckland that could be developed. They need sensitive, strategic thinking through, and they need partnerships. One of the problems here is all that I've mentioned require partnerships between different players rather than just the council coming up with a plan or the University of Auckland thinking it can have a plan or whatever having a plan. What we need to do is see that what are the core assets of Auckland, and we will be writing a report stating what we think the core assets of Auckland are, and how over a 10 to 20 year period we could use those to turn this city into a more global city. And I think at that point I'd better shut up and introduce Dornell Klein, who is an economist in Koitu. Her background is particularly in the economics of poverty and disadvantage, but she's going to talk more generally today, specifically on the issues of agglomeration and on the issues of the Auckland economy and how we move that forward. We'll take all the discussion at the end, Rod, and move on to Dornell.